We recently got Fontaine, and with Natlan soon approaching later this year, that'll be 6 out of the 7 nations of Teyvat covered. We're more than halfway through the story now, and with version 4.4 being focused on the annual Lantern Rite event, it got me reflecting on the nation of Liyue, especially because this will be the first Lantern Rite where Liyue gets a new expansion in the form of Chenyu Vale, which I'm super excited to explore. So I thought with Liyue getting even more focus this year than previous years, I wanted to look back on Liyue as a whole and give some thoughts on why I think that out of all of Teyvat's nation so far, Liyue is still my favorite. In fact, a somewhat silly reason that prompted this video was also with the recent character reveal of Gaming, whose English name generated quite the stir on the internet. Anyways, that was a silly little tangent, but yeah, let's talk about Liyue. So when I look back on Genshin and why I continue to play the game, I think Genshin did a great job in hooking me with its memorable character designs and open world exploration. When I started playing Genshin back in late 2020, I had no idea what was beyond Mondstadt. I only knew of it as an open world game with similarities to one of my favorite games, Breath of the Wild. So I was just having fun exploring Mondstadt with my starter characters. And by the way, Mondstadt is also one of my favorite regions, but that could be for another video. When I finished the Mondstadt Archon Quest, Venti told me to go to Liyue Harbor to see Rex Lapis, so I went south of Mondstadt. And when I went through the stone gate and saw Liyue for the first time, that was the first feeling I remember that made me realize that Genshin was going to be a special game to me. I think it was how Liyue's geographical color scheme was so different compared to Mondstadt's greenery that made me realize that this was the nation based off China, and that evoked some kind of cultural feeling that I haven't felt before in a video game. Even though I haven't played Chinese video games before, nor games that had Chinese regions in them, for some reason I could feel the Chinese cultural themes coming from Liyue, and that made it all the more special when I was exploring the region. It also helped that the OST felt like such a breath of fresh and familiar air. I don't know how other Chinese players felt seeing Liyue for the first time, but I couldn't help but feel like my Chinese culture had a huge representation in this video game. In the beginner wishes banner, the first new character I got besides Noelle was Xingqiu, who I felt like was my first main in Genshin, and having Xingqiu, a Liyue character, during my Mondstadt playthrough, made me excited to eventually go to Liyue. I always found his voice lines catchy, like "time to act," or how he always wants to go check out Wanwen Bookhouse. So looking back, because my very first character was Xingqiu, it also made his region of Liyue more special to me. So yeah, part of why Liyue is my favorite region is because of how incredible it was for me to see so much Chinese culture in a video game. The second reason is the novelty that was in Liyue's exploration. When we started Genshin, we knew that climbing was an essential part of the exploration, especially with limited stamina that would increase with more exploration that we complete. Liyue took it to another level with its higher mountains and landscape that would take way more climbing than Mondstadt. But I think that Liyue made up for the increase in traversing because I felt like traversing all the landmarks was very worth it. Take for example, traversing the Guyun Stone Forest, an area out in the distance of the Sea of Clouds, where we were rewarded with a wonderful view of Liyue Harbor. The best example, which I think most people would agree on, is in Liyue's Minlin region, Qingyun Peak. When I completed this puzzle for the first time, rotated all 3 cranes to face the central monument, glided up revealing platforms to the dwelling in the clouds, with the OST in the background, I remember being hit with a sudden sense of nostalgia that I only get hit with when playing games from my childhood. It was standing here, sometimes sitting down, and just taking in the view and atmosphere above the Sea of Clouds that really solidified to me that Liyue is peak. To this day, I think that traversing to this landmark is still the greatest representation of one of Genshin's main themes, which is its idyllicism. That being up here is the pinnacle of what the game Genshin Impact is all about. Genshin is a game where the quests can be summarized as us trying to bring areas and even people to being idyllic. And I think that the dwelling in the clouds is the landmark that best represents this theme in the game. It's these kinds of panoramic views that also just really highlight the beauty of Genshin's art design. If I had to choose one exploration quest to show anyone what the spirit of Genshin is all about, it would be going to Liyue, traversing its mountains, and restoring a puzzle to ascend the Sea of Clouds. Sometimes I wish I could just go back and explore Liyue for the first time. If we look at the context of hoyoverse's writing during the early game, they didn't make the Archon quests as long as they do today with Sumeru and Fontaine. So even though Liyue's Archon quest only had 3 acts, I still think it was concise, thematic, and full of payoff. The setup with Rex Lapis's supposed death, which would lead into a clash of the old traditions by the Adeptus versus the newer traditions of the Liyue Qixing, and then Child making use of the chaos to try and obtain the Gnosis, reviving Osayo in the process, which then prompted the Adeptus and Qixing to work together in order to achieve the common goal of saving Liyue. Meanwhile, this was a test by Rex Lapis to see if Liyue could prosper without their god, and Zhongli became confident in his answer that his people can lead Liyue into the future. We got to see why a nation's god no longer wanted to rule, but also needed to make sure that Liyue would be in good hands. So we had hype, emotional tension, and fun revelations for the story, so overall I really liked Liyue's Archon quest. Finally, I also wanted to mention Lantern Rite, as it's the only event we get every year, and it's a great reason to come back to Liyue year after year. It's the event I look forward to the most, and part of that is because I know that hoyoverse is always trying to show off Lantern Rite as best as they can. Each of the ending cutscenes are wonderful, and it's always great seeing each of the characters involved being so reflective and celebratory, especially as we head into the new year. I'm really looking forward to version 4.4's Lantern Rite, especially excited to see how they incorporate gaming and traditional lion dancing. One of the highlighted items in my personal Genshin account are all of my Xiao lanterns. I kind of remember crafting 1,000 plus of them, but I didn't anticipate that they'd be gone after the first Lantern Rite. So them being still in my inventory is a nice reminder to me that, hey, I was there during the first Lantern Rite. So at a glance, Liyue has a lot going for it. It was the first nation after the prologue of Mondstadt. I find its exploration, landmarks, and OST to be peak. Its Archon quest was well executed, and I enjoyed the nuance of the ending with Zhongli's reveal. Every year, Genshin has the flagship Lantern Rite event, which always has memorable and emotional, impactful scenes. That's a simple summary of why Liyue is my favorite nation. I understand that much of my reasoning for Liyue being my favorite nation is due to nostalgia, but to that I'd say that there is so much nostalgia precisely because Liyue is so special to begin with. That'll do it for me, so thank you for watching, take care, and see ya around.